it's tragic, but in order for people to understand what's really happening, you have to see these sort of tragic stories here. And this is on your page. It says Zionists assaulted a child and tried to burn him alive. Let's see all the concern for Israeli IDF ravers have now. Now let's watch. It's 22 seconds. This is the child. You can see the burn. His body
it's a Palestinian
burned.
child.
I'm sorry, Palestinian. Palestinian.
شو اسمك انت عمي؟
شفيق.
شفيق ايش؟
محمد احمد.
شفيق محمد احمد. سلامتك عم تخافش هسه بوصلك المستشفى لا تخاف.
Yeah, this is innocent people. These are just innocent sellers, right? I mean, for this type, the thing is, like you said, Fiorella, this happens all the time. This has been happening all the time to Palestinians, and the videos have been out there. All three of us share these literally on a daily basis. I'm sharing at least 2 or 3 videos before this event, about the atrocities that's happening in Palestine, and there's no coverage of it. There's kids being killed, elderly people being killed, women being killed. No one says anything. But then when it happens to the settlers, then we have all of this sort of hair on fire. But go ahead, Nick, if for the next part.
So I sent a link to our friend. We had him on the show a few times, Q Anthony Mene, who does great work and activism on the Israel-Palestine issue. So I'm very excited to have him on. Hopefully he joins here very soon. Now, to Israel's propaganda. And I want you guys to know, they haven't presented, and I'm sure because this is war, like this conflict, bad stuff happened. So I'm sure it does. But there haven't been solid produced evidence of this mass rape that they claim that is going on. And they use the racist assumptions of Americans and Westerners, where they just immediately believe the propaganda spread about the enemy of the state. Now, they can say Palestinians is engaging in mass rapes without producing evidence, because they know a lot of Americans, especially a lot of white Americans and white Europeans, they see Palestinians are savages. They see the people that we fight. They see Syrians. They see the Russians. They see the Iranians. They see everyone as savages. Meanwhile, the way we engage in war, we engage war the proper and kind way, Fiorella. CJ. We engage in nice war, kind, gentleman-like war. Meanwhile, Syria, Israel, and the Russians, they engage in a unique rape-style culture war-like program. So if you actually use common sense, it doesn't even make sense at face value. But people are so propagandized, they just accept whatever is said. Now, to show you guys some example how the West don't really change their techniques, this is what they say about the Russians in Ukraine. Ukraine top prosecutor says Russian forces are using rape, torture to sow terror. They also use it in Syria, where they claim thousands of women and men and children raped. Thousands, Fiorella, thousands. The Syrian government forces and allied militias have raped and sexually assaulted women, girls, and men in a campaign to punish oppositional communities. And this technique has been so effective because people just believe it automatically. This is another one they use. Remember the super Viagra rape soldiers? Gaddafi supplied troops with Viagra to encourage mass rape, claims diplomat, with no evidence. Then, you guys know how many times I heard this in Western media where they just repeat this uncritically, because that's what they do. One more thing I'll share, and I'll get Fiorella in. This is an old school technique. I told you guys, they repeat the same shit, the same proven hits. You guys know how they used to smear black men as brutes and beasts that are looking to rape the white woman? That's the same way they used to justify black codes and harsh authoritarian laws against black men. Oh, that's shocking, huh? Y'all didn't know that. They don't teach you in school that, huh? If they teach you this in school, Ron DeSantis would call this critical race theory, wouldn't he? Right? This is the same thing they use on us. The same thing they said about indigenous people as they launched a genocide against the Native American people. The Native American people are raping white women. The same fucking shit. So I'll pass to Fiorella and CJ if you guys have anything you want to add.
I'll let you chime in, Fiorella. Go ahead.
I mean, you're absolutely right. This is something that they've done time and time again, and it's crazy how far back it goes, but that's the reality. What I wanted to highlight about this is the fact that this applies to the Muslim community as a whole, because they can get away with this knowing that we have a lot of Christians in the United States. A lot of Christians support Israel because they feel like this, I don't know, like affinity towards both, supporting a religion that is so old and blah, blah, blah. There is that affinity. And so they have this perspective that Palestine is Hamas. And that's another thing I want to talk about. Palestine is Hamas, and that's it. And so Hamas means that they're terrorists. So you can talk about terrorists this way. That means everybody's a terrorist. This is what Israel uses when they attack civilians. They don't say they attack civilians. They say, oh, we were attacking these terrorists that were there. So they dehumanize Palestinians by saying that they are Hamas terrorists. And then they say that because these are terrorists, and they're going to go around and rape all these women that are somehow, women that they want, and this is again applied to the whole Muslim community as a whole. And when you read the comments in whether it's Telegram or whatever, of people trying to say, oh my gosh, these poor, Israeli people, they were so innocent, blah, blah, blah. They say, oh, these, beast, brute, blah. They use the same type of derogatory language against these people. And this, of course, comes also from the fact that we were forced to go. I mean, the United States forced the entire world and everybody in our country to endorse and manufacture consent for the war in Iraq under the guise of these terrorists that we helped create and radicalize, just like we did in Syria and in other parts of the world, for which Afghanistan is still dealing with the ramifications. So this is nothing new for the American public. They got the American public to cheer for war a few years ago, 20 years ago to be exact, and now they're cheering for it again. It's so easy to get the people that like Nikki Haley, who I know we're going to talk about. Yeah. There's another one though, Laura Loomer. She was yelling at these Nazis a couple weeks ago, and now she's all like saying the same things that a Nazi would say, because the right wing, at the end of the day, they will never see these people as equal. And so they'll say we're anti, you funding money to Ukraine, but the moment it's a Muslim country, the moment it's a communist country or China, right, or a country in the global south that they can invade, they switch it up real quick.
You start to see the same shit over and over again, and you start to see patterns. And I'm like, nigga, am I tripping, or did I just see this headline? You know what I mean? So, you know what this headline sounds like? This one. I just dug this one up. Russian soldiers are supplied with Viagra to rape Ukrainian women and dehumanize them, claims UN official. So it seems to me, Fiorella, every single person that United States and our allies fight, for some reason they engage in the Viagra super soldier program. Everyone. I guess it's a coincidence. I guess we're the only one who don't practice this Viagra super soldier shit, apparently. Now, like I say all the time, everything the United States claims that our enemies are doing is a projection. Repeat after me. Everything that they accuse their enemies of, we are doing. So who has a squad of super soldiers out here raping people? If anyone does, the United States does. And now, on Twitter/X, you can only post 4 images on a tweet. So I want to let you guys know, I could have found countless stories on this. I had to choose 4. So I chose the first 4 that popped up. U.S. soldier who raped and killed girl, 14, says, I didn't think of Iraqis as human. Let's continue. Because once again, I only can show 4. I will now say the name of this. All you guys know I'm not the greatest linguist. But Muhammadiyah rape and killings were a series of war crimes committed by 5 United States Army soldiers during the U.S. occupation of Iraq, which involved a gang rape and murder of a 14-year-old Iraqi girl. Y'all patriots to this country, fam. Y'all niggas are pledging the allegiance to the flag as they are raping Iraqi teenagers. But then you guys want to say, oh, you're apologizing for the rape of Hamas where we got no evidence of him raping. Nigga, there's Wikipedia pages that's ran by the State Department that fucking document U.S. rapes. Once again, only had 2 images, only had 4 images I can show. I could have went with this all day, fam. I could literally do a thread. It was insane how many stories I found as I did the quick research it took to make this tweet. Rape in the United States military, America's dirty little secret. But you mad at people who don't stand with the flag during the national anthem. You're proud of this country that go around raping the fuck out of people. But tell me more how you got the moral high ground over Hamas. A female soldier in Iraq is more likely to be attacked by a fellow soldier than killed by enemy fire. So if anyone have Viagra super soldiers that rape motherfuckers, it's the United States. So much so the United States female soldiers are not safe. It's a big problem. There's a ton of veterans that talk about the rape culture in the United States. Oh man, we about to get demonetized for this video. Last one, because once again, I can only pick 4 for a tweet. Witness, raped in the United States military, retaliated against for life. Tell me more about the Russian rape culture in their military, though. My boy Q is joining us today. I'm very interested in hearing your perspective on everything that's going on. I've been seeing what you've been tweeting about this issue. So I just want to ask about your general opinion. I know you've been watching a little bit of the stream because you texted me. You said you wanted to join. I'm interested in seeing what you have to say. So what are your first reaction? What made you want to join the stream? Anything you want to ask?
Oh no, it was it's when we were talking about the atrocities being committed against Israelis, that people were being raped, they were being tortured, being burned alive, and so on. And my question is like, all right, so if this is so prevalent, where like everybody's got cell phone cameras, where's the video evidence of this? Like I've only, it's only been hearsay. And the thing is, like, I go and I look into where the sources are that people are getting this information from. So for example, like the idea that women at the festival, this peace festival, I was actually the one that God, I got to get back into fucking streaming, because I was the one that kind of blew the lid off of that one, where everyone was calling it a peace festival. I'm like, where are you guys getting the idea? It's a peace festival. It's not a peace festival. So I go and I look up like what was the actual event that was taking place, and it was called it's an event that actually takes place in Brazil every year called Paralelo Universo. And the Parallel Universal is just like this huge EDM festival that happens in Brazil. So what they'll do is they'll have different events all around the world, North America, Europe, so on. So this one just happened to be in Israel, like practically right next to the Gaza fence, not just next to the Gaza fence, but near like a training base. So you tell me, like, if I'm planning an electronic dance music festival, am I gonna go have that right in front of like a concentration camp? Does that, like, would that occur to any normal human being to go have? And I don't know if you know much about like the EDM culture, but they go by this ethos called PLUR, PLUR, right? Peace, love, and unity for all ravers. And it's like, how the hell are you going to promote peace, love, and unity, and you're shaking your ass right in front of a concentration camp? Doesn't make any goddamn sense to me. So I mean, so once that turned out to be false, it was not a peace festival, and these were not pro-Palestinian people. The reason that people say that is because they wanted to give the impression that, oh, you go out and support the Palestinians, and look what they do. They're going to kill you anyway. It had nothing to do with being a peace festival. It was just a fucking dance party. It was there for like a bunch of like rich fucking fail kids to go pay $20 for bottled water and fucking Sky vodka and like dilate their pupils on Molly. That's what it was. And then the other part that really got me was, why are they always talking about, like, why is it every single time that oppressed people rise up against their oppressors? Or why is it every single time that the US and Western powers, along with NATO, want to go intervene and collapse a government that's resistant to U.S. and Western imperialism, why do they always want to talk about rape? What is this perversion shit that I always got to hear about rape?
Yes.
So I go and I go on I go looking for, okay, where's the source on this? And luckily, a friend of mine on Twitter DM'd me the source. It was an interview from Tablet Magazine. So the headline was talking about, like, the atrocities, the rapes, and so on that occurred at that festival. But there was only one person in the entire 750 to 850 word article. There's only one paragraph that even talked about the possibility of rape occurring. It was one eyewitness that said that they were raping people, and yet people were playing dead for like 3 hours so that they wouldn't be caught too, like they wouldn't get got too. None of the other ones said that there was that there were any rapes that took place. And it also, I mean, like, you have to start questioning yourself. Okay, so they were able to make it over the Gaza border fence, which is basically just the walls of a concentration camp. They make it over the fence, and they've pretty much like gotten almost all the way to the West Bank. One would make the assumption that if you're trying to go from Gaza to the West Bank, you're essentially looking to establish a supply line. You have to do this very fast. Like, this military action has to be very fast. They literally call it Operation Typhoon.
So this is what you're talking about, right? I think
Yeah.
this is what you're talking about, right? This festival they're
It
claiming.
wasn't in market. No, they sourced it from Tablet Magazine. Now, Tablet Magazine is this far right nationalist Israeli magazine. It's so far right that even like people in the Israeli government are like, we didn't actually say that. They're like far to the right of even the Israeli government, and you know how far right Netanyahu is. So the article writer was actually a former communications officer for the IDF.
Of course.
Right. So here's the other thing too. People assume that like every militant group that's associated with Islam is by necessity barbaric. Like, that's been the story about Islam ever since like Samuel P. Huntington's Clash of Civilizations. So when Sam Huntington, anybody who's ever like gone to school for international relations or political science has probably read Samuel P. Huntington's Clash of Civilizations, in which he talks about like the great oncoming war. Like, now that uh, the Berlin Wall has fallen and the Soviet government has collapsed, now the great enemy is going to be a civilizational clash between Christianity and Islam. And the seeds of this idea that Islam is necessarily barbaric were kind of planted in that article. Now, keep in mind, many of these, the Islamic groups, the sectarians, the fundamentalists, people who are, practitioners of Salafism or Wahhabism, they were actually supported by the United States against their own governments. The reason that we have these organizations in the first place, the reason that fundamentalist Islam swept over several countries in the Middle East and South Asia, was because they were supported by the U.S. and UK governments. They wanted these organizations to become the leading political parties of their countries, because the socialist movements that were taking root in the Middle East and South Asia posed a direct threat not only to the United States, but also they could possibly end up aligning themselves with Russia. So when you think about these Middle Eastern groups, and you think of like, somebody like putting up the ISIS flag and screaming Allahu Akbar, and they got masks on, these scary Muslim guys, yeah, this is all a Western creation. And with Hamas, that the story about that is kind of interesting to me, because Israel, over the course of almost 50 years, deliberately targeted and assassinated secular Palestinian leaders. They attempted to sort of cut the head off of this snake, delegitimize the the PLO, Palestinian Liberation Organization, and they were actually supporting Hamas. They were funding Hamas. It's for the exact same reason. You get rid of the secular intelligentsia, you get rid of the socialists, you get rid of people that are actually speaking to people with intelligible solutions and that they can rally behind, and what's left is this fundamentalist organization. The thing is, Hamas over the past 20 years has changed drastically in terms of its tenor. People talk about Hamas as an anti-Semitic organization. They changed their charter. They say very explicitly that their struggle has nothing to do with an enemy towards Judaism. As a matter of fact, in Islam, Judaism it's a predecessor religion. We're all Abrahamic religions. So Christianity and Judaism is under Islam is not, like, people say that we consider them infidels or heretics and so on. No, that's absolutely not true. I myself am a revert. I grew up as a Pentecostal Christian, and I reverted to Islam. And every conversation that I've ever had with a member of a mosque, an imam, anybody within the ummah, anybody inside the brotherhood, every single person that I've ever spoken to has nothing but the utmost respect for Christianity and especially for Judaism, because these are our ancestor religions. These are our predecessors. So the idea that this is a religious war, this oversimplified narrative that they're looking to go out there and kill Jews, Islam has never had a problem with Judaism in Muslim ruled countries. Even when the Moors, the Tuareg, swept through Europe and established a caliphate in Spain, Jewish people were allowed to practice their religion freely. It was only once the Spanish Catholics enacted the Reconquista and took Spain back over from Muslim people, then there were pogroms against Jewish people. But pogroms don't exist in Muslim countries. So this idea that Hamas is on this righteous religious warfare against the Jewish people, that's absolute bullshit. What they want to do is obscure the fact that under like pro-Zionist governments successively for the past 40 years, and every time that Israel has ever had a remotely, like even a slightly less fascistic either prime minister or government, that the government gets overturned and their leaders get either turned out of power or assassinated. You keep in mind, like remember how right-wing Ariel Sharon was, and then Sharon was essentially ousted for Benjamin Netanyahu because Sharon was too soft on the Palestinians. This was after the Second Intifada. And Ariel Sharon was the one that provoked the Second Intifada in the first place. So this whole idea that there's some sort of like this war of conquest, that's absolutely bullshit. Here's what the actual reality is: Israel has essentially herded Palestinian people into the West Bank and into Gaza, and then under Gaza, people don't even have clean drinking water. 6 out of 10 people in Gaza are unemployed because they live in a concentration camp. They can't build roads, they can't build buildings, they can't build water treatment facilities. Almost all of the water that flows through Gaza is poisonous. It's not fit for human consumption. There's absolutely no place in the rest of the world that we would ever tolerate something like this. But because it's Palestinian people, because it's Muslim people, it's acceptable because they're not seen as human. And you have people that have positions within the Israeli government. And this isn't brand new. People within the defense ministry, within the intelligence ministry, and people that communicate for the state of Israel. I've seen this happen repeatedly over the last 20 years. They refer to Palestinians as dogs, as animals. They don't see them as humans. People talk every single time Palestinians rise up and defend themselves. They're talking about wiping them out. Like Abby Martin went to Israel. What was it, like 2-3 years ago? And when she spoke to Israeli people, and I guess because like they thought, well, she's white and I'm white, she's on my side, so I can just say whatever I want to her. And they were saying literally like, what we should do is just send a nuke over there, just end the problem. Like they think a nuke is going to solve their problem. These people are genocidal. These people are genocidal maniacs, and I don't understand what it is that Palestinians ever did to Jewish people that would ever engender this amount of enmity. Their problem is with other Europeans. And yet they take the anger out on Palestinian people who did nothing to them in the first place. This has been happening ever since it happened before 1948. But it was precipitated by the 1948 Nakba, where they ethnically cleansed Palestine. They scattered people to the 4 winds. They bulldozed people's homes. They shot women and children, dumped them in ditches. And I don't even talk about the amount of sexual violence that happened then and continues to happen today. You want to talk about people that get raped? Look at the amount of videos with former IDF soldiers that talk about gleefully how they would used to rape young Palestinian girls, how they'd humiliate Palestinian men. I guess my question, because people have been really mad at me. Like, I was doing a lot of debunking yesterday about the idea that mass rapes were taking place. Like, they absolutely are not. Is it possible? Yeah, I'm not going to discount the possibility that it happened, but you don't just make the assumption that it happened because it's Muslim men. Like, this is insane. I think, and I said this on Twitter earlier, but like I think ever since Americans got that talking point that like the glorious martyrs for Islam will receive 72 virgins in heaven. I think ever since Americans got that little earworm, like that's just how they portray Muslim men ever since they got the little talking point. Like they have this idea of Muslim men as being these bound up, like repressed males who unleash their sexual urges on women. But here's the thing: every single time that any liberationist movement has ever happened, this is the exact same thing to do. During Jim Crow, in the area running up to the abolition of slavery, like in the antebellum South, and in the immediate aftermath of the fall of Reconstruction in the Jim Crow South, what was the predominant view of Black people, particularly Black males? That we're violent, we're savage, that we can't contain our animalistic lusts and so on. What happens when Native people fight against colonization in the United States? What is the propaganda there? That Native men, like they sweep across the frontier, burning houses, killing men, raping women and children. This is the same story that they were told about Libya. That Gaddafi was giving his troops Viagra to go out and to basically be like rape squads. They say the exact same thing about every single group that ever tries to liberate itself. And where do they go to? They go to, well, women are vulnerable because the men cannot contain their predatory urges. Never mind, by the way, in Islam, rape is punishable by death. But that's a whole other kettle of fish. The reason they do this is because the idea of Western colonialism in the first place was always about establishing a homestead and protecting one's family, particularly women. That's why the image of Western dominance has almost always been preceded by a lady. This is something that harkens all the way back to Greek history, with the worshiping of goddesses and the Vestal virgins and so on. This idea carries on throughout European thought that there is a woman or a feminine, whether it's a state, whether it's a nation, whether it's the homestead, that your job as a male is to sweep out, conquer your enemies, and protect your women. And people, I think it resonates so much with people that they're just willing to accept that without a second thought. They don't even know why they understand that. They just do. And the problem is, every single time this shit gets debunked, but it just happens again, and people just believe it blindly. As if Palestinian people don't have any reason to have any violent animosity towards the apartheid Israeli state, aside from the want of Israeli women. It's absolute bullshit.
It's unprovoked, Q. Have you
heard?
Yeah,
it's unprovoked. Give me a dude. I like the last time that there was the ceasefire back in 2021. After the ceasefire, like people were saying, well, hopefully we will have peace after this. And what did Israel do? Less than 3 months after the fact, they begin barging into mosques. They begin arresting youth off of the street. Like they did the exact same shit that they were before. What happened this past Ramadan? The same thing that happens every single year. The IDF storms into the Al-Aqsa Mosque, throws out smoke bombs, beats men's heads open with batons, will literally shoot women in the mosque, zip tie people, call them names, anybody who tries to escape from the mosque, and they're doing nothing but worshiping on the holiest time of the year. And that's what their whole purpose is to humiliate them, just to let them know who's in charge. Why? Because they want them gone. And I don't know exactly how much blood has to be on the hands of Israelis before people start saying, yeah, there's like nothing about this is unprovoked. Just because the wildest thing that I saw this morning, and Isabel, sorry, Fiorella, I don't want to keep you too long here. I don't want to hear your response to this one. People posted the video from Hamas saying that if Israel will continue to indiscriminately bomb civilian targets, then they will execute people. Now they've specified, because again, in Islam, it is not righteous to kill women and children. They say that women and children will not be harmed. So they're only talking about men. They said that if Israel continues with the indiscriminate bombing and killing of Palestinian civilians, they're going to execute a hostage. People said that was barbaric. And I'm like, holy fuck. So you're telling me if Israel is out there, they're dropping white phosphorus, a weapon that is banned by the Geneva Convention. They're dropping white phosphorus over Gaza. They're bombing apartment buildings, people that have nothing to do with the resistance whatsoever, people who are just living where they live because they were herded in there like caged animals. If you're going to drop bombs on these people and drop white phosphorus, which is one of the worst ways to die that you can imagine, that's not violent, that's not barbaric. But the retaliation of killing one person and the attempt here is to stop Israel from indiscriminately killing and burning alive Palestinian civilians. That's barbaric, but the killing and burning alive of people is not barbaric. Absolute bullshit.